Hi, a film I watched earlier this week was Hundreds of Beavers, directed by Mike Cheslik and co-written with Ryland Tews, who also plays the lead role. It's an retro-styled, old-fashioned slapstick comedy that's in black and white and largely silent, and the story of an Applejack salesman whose orchard is destroyed when beavers gnaw through the struts holding up his huge vat, causing a gigantic explosion. Leaving him penniless and out in the frozen wilderness, he decides to become a trapper, gradually accumulating more and more traps and more methods of catching various animals, and attempts to win the heart of the local tradesman, or rather, win the heart of the daughter of the local tradesman in return for the eponymous hundreds of beavers, while the beavers themselves, portrayed entirely by actors in deliberately rather shonky mascot costumes, try to investigate the various murders of their own people, led by a Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson style pair of beavers. This has had a great deal of acclaim, and it's been very open about its inspiration from Looney Tunes, from silent comedy like the Three Stooges. The central part of the movie is inspired by video games and fetch quests and that kind of thing. It's very much in the style of early 90s Nintendo games. I found it to be almost entirely unfunny. It's far too long. It's an hour and 40 minutes or so, and it wears out its welcome a long time before we get to the end. The jokes become extremely repetitive and dull. The there's no the problem with the film, and this is something that's come up on the podcast before, and it goes back to Ted Bovis's rule from Heidi High. For comedy to work, you've got to have reality. You have to have a baseline of reality against which the comedy can push, and the difference between those two elements is what makes it funny. Here we have no baseline of reality. We have a completely bizarre situation, a completely outlandish environment. Characterization is low. There's very little to emotionally engage with. The contrast I what was drawing as I was watching the movie was Airplane, which has hundreds of jokes fired at the audience continuously, and they're all great. But the baseline is this is a situation you recognize. It's the airplane melodrama with the crew being struck down by food poisoning, and it's all played very straight, very serious, and we get the basic level of the situation, and then the comedy puts it on another level, and that's the tension between the two. Here, there is that tension. It doesn't exist. So we have this very outlandish situation, which is even more outlandish, and there's nothing to grab onto. It's all too much. The film is filled with jokes, and I didn't laugh at any of them, except for once, where, as is the practice with all the animals in the movie, the small animals are puppets, the larger animals are people in deliberately unconvincing costumes. The one time we see a horse, it's a pantomime horse with two actors in a costume, and it is deliberately very, very unconvincing to the extent that there is a close up of the horse's face, which is just an immobile face. But there's a hole in the horse's neck, and a very bored actor is looking out of it. And that's the one time I laughed, where it was drawing attention to the silliness, to this fourth wall break, rather than playing everything within the world. It was acknowledging, yes, this is ridiculous, and this shouldn't work. Um, there was so much creativity in the film. I think there's so much effort that's gone into this, and it's very impressive that a lot of the time the film belies its low budget. The fact that it was filmed, a lot of it on location in the snow, a lot of it in studio. There's a huge amount of visual effects in making everything work, but all of it is serving a script which is very overthought, very overcomplicated, and it just doesn't have the humor or the energy or the likability to make it work. The fact that the beavers are shown as being intelligent beings, and the reveal late in the movie of what the beavers are actually going on and doing in the background, suggests that they are of equal human intelligence, but our main character has been killing them by the dozen for the entire running time of the movie, which makes it very hard to like him. There's a scene where when he's first trying to romance the trader's daughter, obviously as it's winter, they're all bundled up in furs, and she very slowly unrolls the top of her sock so that he sees her ankle, which obviously is the acme of sauciness. But then she goes on to do to completely strip down and do a pole dance, which completely destroys the joke because then there's no baseline of humor. The joke is that this the ankle is that's so saucy, and then she does a pole dance anyway, and that just destroys any energy that it has. It destroys the point. Um, it's so much of it feels like it's just first draft, like no one ever thought anything through. So it's just everything being done at once. And even in early part of the movie, there's a song, and its songs of describes a bit of the main character's background and his happy life as an Applejack salesman, catering to the local woodsmen who all enjoy his wares. But the song is so badly mixed that for a silent movie, I had to turn the subtitles on to find out what the lyrics were because it was almost impossible to tell. Um, there's so much potential here for something worthwhile. There's so much effort and so much care, but it just feels so slapped together, and it feels so lacking in understanding of why this would work. I really have no idea why people find this hilariously funny from front to back. I found it to be a wasted opportunity, and moreover, hundreds of small wasted opportunities concertinaed into an hour and three quarters. It's, I think, a very disappointing film. One of the worst films I've seen this year because of the amount of wasted effort and lack of understanding of why this kind of thing works. I hope that Cheslik and Tews maybe in that if they make another movie, it becomes, they think it through and it actually builds on what they've learned from this, and it becomes something of an improvement. Um, but it's going to have to work very hard to persuade me that it's going to be worth watching.